Welcome back to the Horror Story channel Bong Toi Trong Dem. Today, the channel is honored to present the ghost story titled Room 203. Before we begin, if you find this story interesting, please give me a like and subscribe to the channel to support me. Thank you for listening, and now let's get started. That afternoon, In pushed his suitcase up the old staircase, each wooden step creaking loudly. The two-story boarding house had peeling paint, sunlight slanting through the narrow hallway, and tiny dust particles floating in the golden light, and sighed softly, turning back to look at Tuan, his close friend, who was carrying a bulky bag of belongings. Tuan tilted his head, grimaced, then chuckled. "Are you sure you really want to stay here? And just looking at this hallway gives me goosebumps." Wiping the sweat from his forehead, and pushed open the door while replying, "The rent is this cheap. What else can I choose? Besides, I just need a place to sleep, study, and work on my project. Staying in the city center would be impossible to afford." As the door creaked open, a musty smell seeped out. The room wasn't big, just a low wooden bed, a study desk by the window, a small wardrobe, and an old mirror leaning against the wall. Tuan dropped the bag, stood with his hands on his hips. "Yeah, it's cheap, but when something's too cheap, there's usually a reason. Did the landlord say anything?" And gave a faint smile, pulling the curtains. "Just said the room had been empty for a while and wanted to rent it out quickly. That's all." At that moment, Mai stepped in, holding a stack of books for him. She glanced around and frowned. "The room feels kind of cold, even though it's blazing hot outside. It's strangely cool in here. Anne, are you sure you'll be okay?" And smiled, trying to sound optimistic. "Of course, I used to stay in a dorm that was smaller and noisier. At least here it's quiet. Just me, perfect for studying." Mai set the books down, her voice low. "All right, it's up to you. But don't stay up too late. This place feels too deserted." Tuan tapped the wardrobe with his fingers, then joked, "By the way, Room 203 feet sounds just like a horror movie title. If you hear any strange noises at night, remember to call me." And chuckled, trying to lighten the mood. "It'll probably just be rats. And besides, with you and Mai dropping by, it won't feel lonely." Mai pulled up a chair, resting her chin on her hand as she looked at him. "Fine, we'll let it slide, but at least tonight, we're having a little housewarming party. You've just moved in, after all." Tuan clapped his hands loudly, excited. "Perfect idea. I'll go grab some food. Mai, you stay and help and set up the room." The room gradually filled with chatter and laughter. The sunlight outside shifted to a warm orange glow, long shadows stretching across the tiled floor. When Tuan left, Mai sat arranging books on the shelf and asked softly, "And don't you feel like this room is a little off? Ever since we came in, I can't shake the feeling that someone's watching us." And hesitated, then forced a smile. "You're just being paranoid. The room's been empty a long time. The dust and dampness make it uncomfortable. Ghosts don't have time to hang around in the middle of the city." Mai didn't argue, quietly continuing to put the books away, and walked to the old mirror leaning against the wall, wiping away its dusty surface. His reflection appeared faint and somewhat blurry. He muttered, "Maybe I should buy a new mirror later." For just a moment, as Anne turned away, a shadow seemed to flicker across the mirror, so quick it could have been a trick of the eye. Mai, still organizing the shelf, suddenly shivered and glanced around, but saw nothing. She bit her lip, choosing not to say a word. Suddenly, the iron door at the end of the hallway slammed shut with a loud bang. Making them both jump, Mai pursed her lips, forcing a laugh. That must be Tuan coming back, and walked to the door and opened it. But the hallway outside was completely empty. The hallway was utterly silent. Only the fluorescent tube light on the ceiling flickered on and off. And froze at the doorway, his eyes scanning around. Not a single soul in sight. He frowned, turned back in, and said in a low voice, "No one's there. Must have just been the wind slamming a door shut somewhere." Mai stepped out of the room, forcing a smile. "Yeah, maybe. But then, why is this hallway so dark? It's daytime, yet it feels like twilight." And gently tugged her hand. shaking his head. You're too sensitive. Old lights flicker. That's all. Come on, let's finish setting things up. Don't overthink it. Mai nodded softly and went back to the desk. The room fell into a quiet stillness, broken only by the rustling wind outside the window. About 15 minutes later, Tuan returned with a bag of food. He walked in cheerfully. Here it is. The loot. Fried chicken and Coke. How's that for a feast? Mai let out a sigh of relief, standing up to help Tuan set the food on the table. Her voice was lighter now. Food makes everything better. Honestly, I felt uneasy the whole time here. Popping open a Coke bottle, Tuan asked, "Why? Something wrong with the room?" Mai was about to explain, but quickly cut in. "Nothing's wrong. Mai's just a little jumpy. Hears a noise and her imagination runs wild." Tuan laughed, pushing a glass of Coke toward her. "Here, take a sip to calm your imagination. And don't ever leave her alone in this room, or she'll probably faint." Mai shot him a glare but then smiled sheepishly. The mood brightened. The three of them sat eating, chatting about school, and cracking jokes that filled the room with laughter. As night fell, the dim yellow hallway light buzzed faintly, and even the cicadas went silent. The boarding house sank into a strange stillness. Tuan stood, brushing off his hands. "All right, it's late. I've got class early tomorrow. You good, Anne?" And nodded. "I'm fine. Thanks for helping me get settled." Mai gathered the empty boxes, reminding him softly, "If anything weird happens, call us right away. Don't try to tough it out alone." And chuckled, reassuring, "Don't worry. I'm too practical to be scared of anything." Tuan and Mai said goodbye and left. Their footsteps echoed down the hallway, growing fainter until silence returned. The room sank back into stillness, and sat at the desk, opening his laptop to continue his report. The bluish glow lit up his face while the wind whistled faintly outside the window. The clock ticked past 11 at night. As he typed, a faint knocking sound echoed. Knock, knock, knock. He lifted his head. The sound came from the wooden door, and frowned, muttering, "Who could it be at this hour?" He stood, walked over, and hesitated for a moment before turning the handle. The hallway outside was empty. The wind swept through from the far end, making the light flicker again, and scowled, stepping out to glance around. Nothing, only the distant barking of a dog from the neighborhood. Just as he was about to go back inside, the knocking came again, this time from right behind him. He spun around. His room door was slowly closing shut. The door shut with a sharp clack, making him jump. He hurried forward and yanked it open again. The hallway was still empty. The light flickered weakly, casting a sickly yellow glow. Not a single person in sight. And steadied himself, exhaling as he muttered, "Must be the wind. Yeah, just the wind shutting it." He went back inside, locked the latch tightly, and sat down at his desk. His fingers tapped the keyboard, but his mind refused to focus. The sound of knock, knock from earlier kept replaying in his head, steady, deliberate, as if someone wanted to make sure he noticed. His phone buzzed on the desk. A text from Tuan. "I'm home. Don't overthink. Go to bed early." And stared at the screen for a few seconds. Then impulsively called back. The line rang several times before Tuan's slightly hoarse voice answered. "Hello? What's up?" Anne, glancing toward the door, and lowered his voice. "Tuan, I just heard knocking, clear as day, but when I opened it, no one was there." Tuan chuckled sleepily. "Oh come on, probably some kid in the building messing around. It's normal in places like this." And stayed quiet for a few seconds, then replied, "Yeah, maybe." Still, it felt unsettling. Tuan cleared his throat, sounding more firm. "Listen, I'll come crash at your place tomorrow night. If there's really something, we'll both see it. Feel better now?" And smiled faintly, feeling a bit relieved. "Yeah, thanks, man." Tuan answered right away. "All right then, get some sleep. Don't dwell on it, and make sure you lock up properly. Don't let the wind mess with you again." The call ended, and set the phone down and leaned back in his chair. He took a deep breath, convincing himself he was just being overly sensitive. But just as he was about to shut down his laptop and head to bed, a faint sound came from the bathroom. Drip, drip. like water falling onto the tile floor, and shot up, walking cautiously toward the bathroom door. His hand trembled slightly as he turned the knob. The door opened. Inside was pitch black, lit only by the faint glow spilling in from the room outside. The sink was completely dry, the faucet not dripping a single drop. He squinted at the mirror on the wall. For the briefest moment, his reflection seemed to smile back at him. But when he blinked, the face was normal again, and swallowed hard, shut the bathroom door, and nearly rushed to the bed, diving under the blanket. Outside, the night wind howled louder, whistling through the window cracks, carrying with it the faint sound of knock, knock, somewhere in the darkness. And curled up under the blanket, eyes squeezed shut, he kept telling himself he had to sleep, if he could just fall asleep. Everything would pass, but the harder he tried, the sharper his ears caught every sound. The rustling wind outside, the ceiling light clicking tick, tick, as if it was about to die, and his heartbeat pounding like a drum inside his chest. At last, exhaustion pulled him down into sleep. In his dream, he found himself still lying on the same bed, in the same room 203. Everything was so vivid, so real, that he didn't realize it was a dream. The bathroom door creaked open. A cold draft swept out. Inside, the steady drip, drip, of falling water echoed, and sat up, his bare feet touching the icy floor tiles. Slowly, he walked toward the bathroom. The door opened wider on its own, the thick darkness inside seemingly waiting for him. In the mirror, a reflection appeared, clear and sharp, of a long-haired girl standing with her back turned. Her hair was drenched, water dripping onto the floor, and gasped, stepping back, but his body didn't obey him. He saw himself raising a trembling hand, whispering, Who's there? The girl in the mirror tilted her head slightly. Not a full turn, just the smallest angle, enough for him to see her pale lips curve faintly into a smile. And tried to scream, but his throat locked tight. His body staggered, then he fell, his head slamming hard against the bed frame. He jolted awake, and shot upright, gasping for breath, sweat soaked through his shirt. His heart racing. He touched his head, no wound. Nothing there. The room looked exactly the same, bathroom door shut, desk lamp casting its dim yellow glow, and muttered hoarsely, "It was just a dream. Yeah, just a dream." Suddenly, his phone lit up on the desk. A message from Tuan, sent a little after 3 in the morning. "Hey, I just got this strange feeling. You okay?" And stared at the words for a moment before replying, "I'm fine. See you tomorrow." Setting the phone down, he leaned back against the wall, sitting in silence. Out in the hallway, the dorm clock chimed 3 times. At that moment, from the door, came a faint thud, as if someone knocked once, then stopped, and didn't dare get up to check. He pulled the blanket over his head, squeezed his eyes shut, and let the sound of the howling wind through the window be the only thing that filled the night. The next morning, and sat silently in class. He rested his chin on his hand, eyes staring out the window, but his mind kept circling back to the dream from the night before. Tuan, sitting beside him, nudged his elbow. "Hey, I texted you at 3 a.m. last night. Why didn't you answer right away? Had me worried sick all night." And blinked, forcing a faint smile. "I did reply, just a bit late. I must have dozed off." Tuan studied him closely, lowering his voice. "Really? You look like you haven't slept in a week. Want me to come crash at your place tonight? I've got this bad feeling." And hesitated, fingers tightening around his notebook. If you're free. Then, yeah, maybe. Having someone there might make it easier to sleep." Tuan nodded instantly. "Done. I'll bring a blanket over. That bed of yours big enough for 2? And sighed softly. "It's only a 4-foot bed. Probably cramped for both of us. But one of us can sleep on the floor if we have to." For the rest of the day, and felt a little lighter knowing Tuan would be there. By evening, Tuan arrived with his backpack, grinning, "Packed like I'm going camping. Tonight we'll see if your room 203 is really haunted." And just shook his head, not in the mood to joke. They spread out their blankets, then sat eating instant noodles in front of the laptop. Their laughter and chatter filled the room with an unusual warmth, pushing back the eerie chill that usually hung in the air. Close to midnight, they switched off the lights and lay down. Tuan turned to whisper, "So, what's really going on? You're not acting normal. Just tell me," and hesitated for a long time before finally admitting softly, I dreamed of a girl in the mirror. Last night, wet hair, back turned. I don't even know if it was a dream or real." Tuan let out a low whistle. "Sounds like a horror movie. But hey, it's probably just stress. New place, strange vibes. It messes with your dreams." And forced a weak smile and said no more. The room quieted, with only the sound of the wind outside and the desk fan spinning steadily. Around 3 in the morning, Tuan suddenly opened his eyes, and was still lying quietly beside him. But from the bathroom came the distinct drip, drip, of water hitting the tiles. Frowning, Tuan sat up. He was about to shut the faucet when he noticed the bathroom door was tightly closed. The dripping continued, steady and clear. From behind the door, he glanced back at En, about to call his name. But at that moment, in the mirror hanging outside the bathroom, Tuan caught a glimpse of a long-haired figure standing right behind him. He whipped around in panic, only to find empty darkness. Swallowing hard, Tuan scrambled back to the bed, yanking the blanket over both of them. His voice trembled as he shook En, "I just saw someone in the mirror," and shot up, his face pale. The two of them sat pressed together, frozen in place, straining to catch every sound in the silence. Inside room 203, the quiet was suffocating. Tuan pulled the blanket up to his chin, his voice trembling. "I swear, there was someone in the mirror behind me. Long hair, head down. I couldn't see the face clearly, but it definitely wasn't my imagination," and gripped his friend's hand tightly, trying to sound calm though a chill ran down his spine. "Did you hear the dripping sound? It's been going on ever since you sat up." The two fell silent, listening. Sure enough, drip, drip, echoed steadily, as if from a leaky faucet. Tuan took a deep breath and stood up. "All right, I'll check it. We can't just sit here clinging to each other until morning," and quickly grabbed his arm. "Wait, don't open the door." Tuan glanced at him, then back at the bathroom. He swallowed hard but eventually stepped forward. The bathroom door was icy cold under his hand. He turned the knob and pushed gently. The door creaked open. Inside was pitch black. Tuan flicked on the light. A pale yellow glow filled the bathroom. Everything looked normal. The sink was bone dry, the faucet tightly shut, not a single drop of water. Tuan froze. The dripping sound was still there, yet everything was dry. From behind, En's shaky voice asked, You hear it too, right?" Tuan nodded slowly. "Yeah, but I don't know where it's coming from." As soon as he said that, the bathroom light flickered several times, then went out completely. Darkness swallowed the room. Tuan's heart skipped a beat, and he spun around, in that instant, and caught a fleeting image in the mirror beside the door, a faint figure of a girl. Long wet hair hanging loose, standing motionless, and staggered back, clutching Tuan's shirt, his voice breaking. "Get out, now!" They slammed the bathroom door shut and collapsed onto the floor of the main room, both gasping for air. Cold sweat drenched Tuan's face. His usual playful grin was gone. He stammered, What was that? Don't tell me you saw it too." And nodded frantically, his face pale. "I saw her. A girl. Exactly like in my dream. And you saw her too, didn't you?" Tuan stayed silent for a long moment before finally lifting his head, eyes still wide in shock. "Yeah, this time. We can't say it was just our imagination." The room fell silent again. The wind seeped through the window cracks, carrying a chill that made them both shiver. Tuan pulled the blanket tighter, making up his mind. "We're not sleeping tonight. We'll sit here until morning. Tomorrow, we're asking the landlady what the hell happened in room 203. And nodded, his hands still trembling uncontrollably. Outside, the clock struck 3:30. Inside room 203, the two of them sat side by side, waiting in silence for dawn. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the narrow window, falling across En's tired face. He hadn't slept a wink all night, keeping vigil with Tuan. His eyes were dark with shadows, his head heavy, yet his heart still unsettled. Tuan stretched, forcing a smile to shake off the fatigue. I can't take this anymore. If this keeps up, we'll fail all our classes. We need to get some answers. And nodded, clutching a cup of hot water in his hands as if to draw warmth from it. The two changed clothes and went downstairs together to find the landlady. The boarding house was quiet in the morning. The damp hallway still held traces of dew. From the courtyard came the steady scraping of a broom. Where the landlady, a woman in her 50s, short and a bit frail, was bent over gathering fallen leaves. Tuan stepped forward first, wearing a polite smile. Good morning. Sorry to bother you so early, but we want to ask you something about room 203. The woman paused, lifting her head slightly. Her deep black eyes flickered with hesitation. She set down the broom, speaking evenly. Why, something wrong with that room? And glanced at Tuan, then spoke slowly. Last night, we heard strange noises. Like someone was in the bathroom. I even saw the shadow of a girl in the mirror. The landlady's face shifted slightly. She glanced around, as if afraid someone might overhear. After a moment, she sighed and lowered her voice. I didn't want to say anything, but the past can't be changed, no matter if we talk about it. Tuan blurted out, impatient. The past, what happened? The woman raised her head and looked straight at them. Something in her gaze sent a chill crawling down Anne's spine. She spoke slowly, each word deliberate. Many years ago, a girl rented that room. Young, about your age. She was quiet, kept to herself. One morning, people found her dead in the bathroom. They said it was suicide. The air thickened and swallowed hard, his heart hammering. Tuan blinked rapidly, forcing his voice steady. Then, why still rent it out? Shouldn't? The woman cut him off, eyes lowering. What, leave it empty forever? People talked for a while, then forgot. The tenants after that, most never experienced anything. Maybe you're just imagining things. And asked softly, his voice trembling. She died in the bathroom, didn't she? The landlady went silent for a moment, then turned away and picked up her broom again. Her tone hardened, as if closing the matter. Yes, but don't bring it up. The dead should rest. You two should go back now. With that, she resumed sweeping, not sparing them another glance. Tuan tugged on Anne's arm, and the two walked back upstairs in silence, each step weighed down by the heavy air. Back in the room, Tuan let out a long sigh and dropped onto the bed. See, there really was something. We didn't imagine it, but why was she so evasive? Feels like she's still hiding something. And sank into the chair, his eyes fixed on the bathroom door left slightly ajar. In his mind, the image of the long-haired, drenched girl lingered. He whispered, almost to himself, if she died here, then what I saw wasn't a dream. It was. Tuan watched him, staying silent, too shaken to finish the thought. The two of them sat in room 203 as daylight filtered weakly through the window, unable to chase away the cold that clung to every corner of the walls. That afternoon, while Anne and Tuan were still sitting quietly in the room, a knock came at the door. Tuan frowned and got up to open it. Standing there was Mai, their classmate, holding a stack of notebooks. Smiling lightly. So this is where you two are hiding for study group? The class representative said you didn't show up at the library, and I figured you were probably just napping together again. Tuan forced a smile, stepping aside to let her in. We've been dealing with something. Mai's eyes swept the room. As she stepped in, she froze, her gaze fixed on the bathroom door. Her voice slowed. This place feels strange. And looked up, a little surprised. Before he could say anything, Tuan waved it off. Not this superstition stuff again. It's just a rented room. Nothing more. Mai set her notebooks on the desk and dropped into a chair. She looked directly at Anne, her expression serious. Tell me, something happened last night, didn't it? Tuan was about to interrupt, but Anne stayed silent for a few moments before finally nodding. He recounted everything, the footsteps, the dripping water, the shadowy figure in the mirror. Mai listened intently, without interrupting. When he finished, she shivered slightly. Her hands clenched. In a quiet, firm voice, Mai said, "I've heard stories about room 203 before. I didn't think they were true. But now, it all makes sense. The first time I came here, I could feel something wasn't right." Tuan crossed his arms, skeptical. "You're just overthinking." The landlady said it was nothing. Just old rumors. Mai shook her head, her eyes sharp. "Didn't you notice?" She avoided the subject completely. "The girl died in the bathroom. And now all the noises come from there. That's too much of a coincidence." The room fell silent. Outside, footsteps shuffled down the hall, slippers dragging against the floor, then faded away, and let out a heavy sigh. His voice hoarse. "I don't know, but ever since she told us, I haven't dared look in the mirror. Every time I think about it, I picture that wet-haired figure standing behind me." Mai leaned forward, her voice steady. "That's exactly why we need to find out the truth. If we just stay quiet, sooner or later, it'll break us." Tuan frowned. "And what do you suggest we do?" Mai answered immediately, her tone resolute. "Find the old records. The local ward office or the police station must still have files on it. If someone really died in this room, it'll be documented. We need to know the real cause." Tuan gave a dry laugh. "You think it's that easy? We're just students. They're not going to hand us police files. And even if we find out, then what? Exorcise the ghost?" Mai didn't flinch, staring straight at him. "We need to know so we can protect ourselves." "What? Do you want to sit here shivering every night instead?" "I don't believe there's no way." And stayed quiet, eyes drifting toward the window where the sunlight was already turning orange. Inside him, fear battled with a need for answers. The more they avoided it, the more it haunted him. Finally, he nodded slowly, speaking softly. "I think Mai's right. Hard or not, we need to try." Tuan looked at them both, then sighed, raising his hands in defeat. "Fine, if you two are set on this, I'm in, but don't say I didn't warn you." Mai smiled faintly, determination flashing in her eyes. "No regrets. The only thing I fear is that the dead never actually left this place." Her words sank the room into silence. The bathroom door stayed shut and still, but it felt as though someone was standing right behind it, listening to every word. The next morning, and woke with dark circles under his eyes. All night, he had kept jerking awake, every time he closed his eyes hearing the faint sound of dripping water. Tuan was still fast asleep, while Mai had already been up for a while, sitting at the desk brushing her hair. She turned to him, her voice even. "Since you're up, eat something. I have something I want us to do." And rubbed his eyes, his voice raspy. "What is it?" Mai tied back her hair and stood. "Let's walk around the neighborhood. Ask a few locals. Someone must remember what happened back then." Tuan stirred, his voice still heavy with sleep. "Who's gonna waste time telling us old stories? And people don't like bringing up bad luck." Mai placed a hand on his shoulder, giving it a small shake. "But we won't know unless we try. Out there, someone must have seen what happened." Tuan opened his eyes, glancing at In. "What do you think?" In hesitated briefly, then nodded. "Let's do it. I want to know too. Staying in that room won't give us peace." The three left the boarding house, following a narrow brick-paved lane. Morning light was bright but the alley was cramped. Houses pressed closely together, street vendors' calls echoing. They stopped at a small tea stall at the end of the alley, where an elderly woman, around 60, sat fanning herself lazily. Mai stepped forward with a polite smile. "Good morning, Grandma. May I ask, have you lived here long?" The woman looked at them, nodding slowly. "A long time, over 20 years." Mai glanced briefly at In, then lowered her voice. "Then, do you know that boarding house over there? Room 203. Something happened there, right?" At the mention of that number, the old woman's eyes shifted slightly. Her fan paused for a beat before she resumed fanning. "Yes, a long time ago. They said a young girl died in the bathroom. They called it suicide, but..." She stopped, her cloudy eyes staring off into the distance. No one really believed she killed herself. She was cheerful, about to graduate, even had a boyfriend. Then suddenly one night, they found her, with wet hair plastered all over the mirror. And felt his chest tighten. his heart stabbing at the image. The blurry vision from his dream rushed back like a wound reopening. Tuan scratched his head, forcing a smile. Grandma, so, what happened after that? Did anyone live there again? The old woman sighed, setting her fan down. Everyone moved out. Some did rent the place. But most left within weeks. They said it was because they couldn't get used to it. But really, everyone was scared. Mai pressed her palms together respectfully. Her voice sincere. Thank you for telling us. We just wanted to understand better. The woman nodded, her gaze sharp on the three of them. Be careful, children, don't dig too deep. The dead don't always rest easy. Her words left the air heavy. They left the stall, walking toward the market, passing by the fish vendors, and was still haunted by the old woman's voice. He muttered, eyes fixed on the wet patches of water staining the concrete floor. If she didn't kill herself, then who made her die? Mai gripped her bag strap tightly. Her reply soft, just loud enough for the other two. Exactly. This isn't just some ghost story. There's something unsaid. Tuan shuddered, crossing his arms. Hey, don't make this sound like a crime case. We only need to know the basics. If this turns into murder talk. And turned to him, his eyes unusually firm. No, if there's a truth, I want to know it all. Because clearly, she never left room 203. The three fell silent. Outside, the street was noisy with traffic and vendors. But between them, fear and determination were mixing into something heavy and hard to name. That afternoon, as the sunlight faded, the three returned to the boarding house. The door to room 203 was tightly shut. And inside, the familiar damp chill lingered. Tuan was the one to unlock it. He glanced at his friends. Exhaling. Come on, I don't want to stay out here any longer. Mai stepped in first, setting her bag on the desk. She opened the window to let the breeze in, then turned back, speaking softly. We need more information about that girl. If there are records, old newspapers, anything, the local police or library might still have them. And sat down, resting his chin on his hand. I was thinking the same. But don't you find it strange? The old woman said she had a boyfriend. Yet no one ever mentioned his name. Tuan leaned back in his chair, frowning. Maybe he just disappeared. Old story. Who wants to dig that up? Honestly, the more we stir this up, the more trouble we're asking for. Mai looked straight at him, her voice calm. But if we don't, we'll keep living in fear. Do you really want to spend every night hearing dripping water? Or seeing a shadow in the mirror? Tuan fell silent, and gave him a look before adding. Then let's decide this, tomorrow. I'll go to the ward office to ask if they still have the case files. Mai, you check the old newspapers. Tuan. He paused, staring at Tuan intently. You stay here. Try talking to the neighbors around the building. Maybe someone knows more. Tuan scowled, protesting instantly. Hey, why me alone? What if something happens? Mai smiled gently, her tone softening. It's only during the day. Nothing will happen. And besides, you're good at chatting with people. You can do it. Tuan hesitated, scratching his head. All right then, I'll give it a shot. Night fell. A light drizzle pattered outside, the wind whistling through the cracks. The three sat around the table, each holding a steaming cup of instant noodles. The warmth calmed the air slightly, but An still felt chills crawling down his spine. He set down his chopsticks and whispered, Hey, do you two hear that? Tuan looked up, noodles still hanging from his mouth. Hear what? Mai tilted her head, staying quiet for a moment before lowering her voice. Water, from the bathroom. All three turned at once. The bathroom door was ajar, darkness spilling out. The sound was clear, drip, drip, each drop echoing against the tiles in the stillness. Tuan swallowed hard, setting his noodles down. No way, I locked that faucet tight this afternoon. And rose, walking slowly toward it. His hand trembled as he reached for the knob. Mai stood too, following close behind. The door opened, dim light spilled in. Inside the sink, water was dripping steadily, but what froze them all was the mirror. Across the fogged glass was the smeared outline of a handprint, long, slender fingers pressed from the inside. Mai staggered back, breathing hard. That's impossible. And stared, lips trembling. She's still here. Tuan grabbed An's shoulder, pulling him away. Close it, don't look. An froze, then finally brushed Tuan's hand aside and gently shut the bathroom door. Inside, the dripping continued, steady as a heartbeat. The three returned to the table, none of them speaking. Outside, the rain fell heavier, merging with the dripping sound inside, weighing the room down with suffocating tension. But An's eyes grew more resolute. Only one thought echoed in his mind. They had to uncover the truth, or room 203 would never find peace. The next morning, the sky was overcast, gray clouds hanging heavy. The three of them rose early, gathering around the old wooden table in room 203 to plan their next steps. An straightened a stack of notes in his hands and spoke firmly. As we agreed, today we split up. I'll go to the ward office and ask about old case files. Mai, you check newspapers at the library. Tuan, you stay here and talk with the neighbors. Keep calm, don't raise suspicion. Mai nodded, her voice steady. If you find anything, call right away. We can't lose contact. Tuan crossed his arms, frowning. Fine, but I still don't feel good about this. Still, we have to try. And walked to the local police station. The building was faded yellow, its sign weathered and dull. A young officer on duty listened to his question, then frowned, and kept his tone casual. Excuse me, but about 15 years ago, near the old iron bridge, was there any accident involving a young woman? I just heard rumors. The officer thought for a moment, flipping through his notes before replying. Yeah, I think so. Long ago, a young woman. Heard she fell from the second floor. Serious injuries. But, he stopped, giving An a sharp look. Why are you asking about this? An forced a nervous smile. I'm just renting nearby. Neighbors mentioned it, and I got curious. The officer shrugged, then lowered his voice. It was messy back then. Word was she didn't fall on her own. But the family kept it quiet. Something about a young man who often visited her. The details though, the case files were sent to the district office. Hearing that, An froze for a moment. His heart pounded, but he thanked the officer politely and left. Meanwhile, at the district library, Mai sat surrounded by stacks of yellowed newspapers. She turned each page carefully, eyes scanning line by line. Then she stopped. In the corner of one paper was a short article, on June 12th. At a boarding house near the Iron Bridge, a tragic accident occurred. A female student fell from the second floor and died instantly. According to witnesses, just before the fall, she was seen arguing with a young man. Mai's grip tightened on the page. Her lips pressed thin. She whispered under her breath. Who was that young man? Was he the boyfriend the old woman mentioned? Her pulse quickened as she snapped a photo with her phone. Back at the boarding house, Tuan sat outside the unit, chatting with Mr. Tu, an older tenant who had lived there for years. The man held a cigarette, smoke curling into the air. Tuan asked cautiously, Uncle, was there really something about room 203? Mr. Tu exhaled a stream of smoke, eyes narrowing. So you've heard, huh? Yeah, a girl died there. Back then, people gossiped a lot. There was a young guy who used to visit often. But after that night, he vanished. Truth is, many people moved in after. But they all left. And I bet you've already heard noises at night. Haven't you? Tuan shivered but forced himself to answer. Why yeah, a little. Mr. Tu gave a wry smile, tapping ash from his cigarette. If you're staying, better light incense for her. Don't stir up old matters. The dead only want peace. Tuan nodded, though his chest felt heavy. That afternoon, the three met again in room 203. On the table lay the newspaper Mai had found, An's notes, and Tuan's retelling of Mr. Tu's words. The air was thick with tension. An put down his pen, his voice low. It's clear there was a man involved. She didn't fall on her own. But who was he? And why did he vanish? Mai whispered, her hand resting on the newspaper. Maybe that's the very reason she can't move on. Tuan swallowed hard, glancing nervously at the bathroom door. Then, could it be she wants us to uncover the truth for her? His words pulled the room into silence. Outside, the wind rattled the glass panes softly. For a moment, All three felt the same uncanny sensation, that unseen eyes were fixed on them. Waiting. Night fell quickly. Rain tapping against the tin roof. Wind lashing at the window panes. Room 203 was swallowed in the dim yellow glow of the desk lamp. On the table, the old newspaper lay open, the words seeming to dance under the flickering light. Mai sat close, her voice low and measured. If this article is right, then the victim was a student. She died on the spot. That young man, he could be the key. But we don't know his name. And rested his chin on his hand, staring off. The ward office said the case files were sent to the district. But maybe the papers hold more. Or maybe the locals know something else. Tuan shifted uneasily in his chair, arms crossed. Mr. Tu said that Guy disappeared after that night. Strange thing is, if he was innocent, why vanish? And if he was guilty, why wasn't there a full investigation? Mai lifted her gaze, worry flickering in her eyes. Maybe the family settled it, covered it up. The girl was left behind. And this room is what keeps it all. The air fell silent. Outside, the wind howled, carrying a sigh that seemed to follow the rhythm of the rain. Close to midnight, and suddenly heard a sound from the bathroom. A rattling, as though someone was turning the faucet. He frowned. Did one of you turn on the water? Both Mai and Tuan shook their heads. The noise continued, faint but steady. Tuan exchanged a glance with them, then slowly stood. He grabbed a flashlight and stepped toward the bathroom. The door was ajar. From the crack spilled a faint, sickly green light. Tuan swallowed hard, his hand trembling as it gripped the knob. He turned it slowly. The door creaked open. Inside, the faucet was running, water trickling into the sink. But what froze them all was the mirror. The reflection wasn't Tuan standing there. It was a girl with long wet hair, wearing a white blouse, her face bluish, her eyes wide open. Tuan staggered back, heart racing. He forced the words out, his voice hoarse. "And, Mai, look." And Mai rushed up behind him. Both saw it clearly, the figure in the glass. Mai clutched An's arm, her hand ice cold. My God, it's her. In that instant, the image in the mirror trembled, then dissolved, leaving only Tuan's pale, terrified face staring back. The faucet cut off abruptly. The bathroom returned to silence, as though nothing had ever happened. They stumbled back to the main room and huddled together, wordless for several minutes. The air pressed down heavy on their chests. At last, An spoke, his voice rough. She appeared, to remind us. We have to uncover the truth. If not, this won't stop. Mai nodded faintly, her eyes still wide with fear. Maybe she's showing us. The young man, he's the one we need to find. Tuan breathed hard, wiping sweat from his forehead. But how? We don't have a lead. Asking people only gets us rumors. And clenched his fists, his tone sharp with resolve. Tomorrow, I'll go to the district office. I need to see the files. Mai, keep digging through the papers. Tuan, stay here, but don't be alone. Go sit with Mr. Tu. Write down what he remembers. We need to piece everything together. The three exchanged heavy glances. Outside, the rain kept falling, but inside, each of them knew they weren't just tenants anymore. They had become witnesses, drawn into unraveling the knot of room 203's past. That night, though each of them tried to close their eyes, none could sleep. In the darkness, faint rattling noises echoed from nowhere. Now and then, the wind hissed through the cracks, carrying with it the metallic stench of rust. Each of them lay restless, with a chilling certainty growing inside. This story was about to open into something deeper. And the truth would be anything but simple. The next morning, the rain had stopped, but a dull gray sky hung heavy over the boarding house. Puddles on the ground glistened faintly, reflecting the weak light. An, Mai, and Tuan sat together in a small coffee shop at the end of the alley, the air still heavy from the night before, and looked at his two friends, his voice low. I'm going to the district office today. I had to get information about what happened back then. All last night, I kept hearing dripping water in my head, kept seeing her in the mirror. I'm certain she's demanding justice. Mai nodded faintly, hiding the exhaustion on her face. I'll head to the university library. Check the old papers. Back then there must have been more articles. We just haven't looked in the right place. Tuan leaned on his arm, eyes fixed on the traffic outside, then sighed. I'll talk to Mr. Tu again. He's lived there the longest, maybe he knows more than he lets on. But honestly, I'm nervous. Last night, when I closed my eyes, I still saw her shadow standing at the door. Mai placed her hand gently over his, her tone soft but firm. If we don't see this through, those shadows will never let us go. We have to find the truth. And stood, his voice firm. Then it settled. Tonight we meet back in 203, each bringing what we've found, at the district police office, and went through endless questions and paperwork before finally, an older officer discreetly gave him something. The man looked around, then lowered his voice. You're asking about the 2012 case, right? Female student, died at that boarding house. It's true. The papers reported it, but the case file was closed quickly. Word was, the other family had powerful connections. That's why no one mentions it anymore. And frowned. The other family? Who were they? The officer shook his head, his eyes uneasy. There's a name, yes, but I can't say. Understand this. Digging into old cases can bring trouble. All I can tell you is the young man was never charged. He left the city afterward. That's all the file says. And closed his notebook slowly, anger burning in his chest. He bowed slightly in thanks, then walked out, his steps heavy as if weighed down by stone. Meanwhile, at the library, Mai sifted through brittle, yellowing newspapers. The smell of old paper stung her nose. As she had guessed, she found more articles. One of them read clearly, according to witnesses. Before the victim fell from the second floor, there was a heated argument with a young man. The man wore a black jacket and was believed to be an ex-boyfriend. Mai's palm dampened with sweat as she gripped the page. She whispered to herself. So, she was pushed? In that moment, a chill swept across her back. She whipped around, only to see rows of silent shelves. Yet in the far corner, through the dim light, a slim figure seemed to flicker past, long hair hiding half her face. Shaking, Mai slammed the papers shut and held them tightly to her chest, clinging to the fragment of truth. Elsewhere, Tuan sat with Mr. Tu outside the unit, though steam rose from his cup of tea. His hands stayed icy cold. Mr. Tu spoke slowly. That girl in 203, she was polite, always greeted people. For a while, a young man often came by. He looked well off, educated, but later, I heard they argued a lot. The night it happened, I even heard shouting, then a loud crash. Tuan swallowed hard. Did you see the man clearly? Mr. Tu shook his head, eyes cloudy. Only remember he was tall, thin, wearing a black coat. After that night, he vanished. The police came, but then, silence. The room stayed empty for a long time before they rented it again. But no one lasted more than a month. Tuan sat frozen, pieces of the puzzle slowly fitting together into a dark picture. By evening, the three reunited in room 203. They laid out everything they had, and notes from the officer, Mai's newspaper clipping, and Tuan's retelling of Mr. Tu's words. The air was thick, suffocating. Mai placed the paper on the table, speaking clearly. It wasn't an accident. She was pushed. That man was the killer. But he vanished. The case was buried, the truth forgotten, and nodded sharply, eyes burning red. I think so too. And last night, her reflection in the mirror, it was confirmation. She wants us to see. She wants us to remember. Tuan clenched his fists, his voice trembling but firm. Then tonight, we stay here. We face it. If she's still here, let her tell us what she couldn't. The room sank into silence. Outside, darkness fell quickly, dragging the past back with it. Night fell. Room 203 was dim, lit only by the sickly yellow of the desk lamp. The three sat around the table, scattered in front of them old newspapers, scribbled notes, and cups of tea gone cold. No one spoke. Only the ticking of the wall clock echoed in the silence. Suddenly, a gust of wind slipped through the crack in the door, lifting the newspaper and sending it fluttering to the floor. Mai, startled, quickly bent down to pick it up, but when her fingers touched the page, she froze. The yellowed sheet now bore a fresh, wet stain, as if damp hands had just pressed against it. Mai looked up, her voice hoarse. "Do you see this? It's like someone wet just touched it." And rose quietly and walked to the mirror hanging in the corner. He placed his hand on the old wooden frame. In the glass, the reflection showed not just the three of them, but also a faint figure standing behind Tuan, a long-haired girl. Her face blurred and swallowed hard, then spoke slowly. "We know you were wronged. We won't let this stay buried. But please, tell us the final truth." The air thickened. The lamp flickered violently. The sound of dripping water echoed clear and sharp. Though the faucet in the bathroom had long been shut, Tuan followed the sound, leapt to his feet, and flung the bathroom door open. A blast of cold air rushed out. Inside, the floor tiles were soaked, as though someone had just showered. On the bathroom mirror, smeared letters appeared, scrawled as if in a hurry. "Black coat." Tuan trembled, pointing. "An, Mai, look." All three stared as the words slowly dissolved, sliding down like water. Mai clutched An's arm tightly, her voice breaking. She's talking about him. The man in the black coat." Just then, from the hallway came the sound of heavy, deliberate footsteps. Thud, thud, growing closer. The door to room 203 rattled as though someone pounded on it. Mai whispered, pale as chalk, Who's out there?" and drew in a breath, pressing close to the door. His voice was firm, though shaking. "If it's you, we promise to bring the truth to light. We won't let the murderer escape. But please, don't harm us." The knocking stopped. Silence pressed down, suffocating. Then, the doorknob slowly turned. The door cracked open. Outside, no one, only the long hallway, stretching into dim neon flickers. Mai covered her face, gasping. "No, this isn't a hallucination anymore. She's really here." Tuan rasped, voice unsteady. "No, not just here. She's leading us." Indeed, across the floor, a trail of wet prints appeared, watermarks stretching from the bathroom out into the hall. Forming faint footprints, the three glanced at each other, then instinctively followed. They traced the wet marks down the hall, down the stairs, until they stopped at the old storage room on the ground floor. The rusty iron door stood slightly ajar. Summoning all his courage, and pushed it open. The air inside reeked of damp and rot, dust blanketing every surface. In the corner sat a battered cardboard box. On top of it lay a faded black coat. Tuan froze, whispering, "The black coat?" Mai stepped forward, trembling, and opened the box. Inside, along with the coat, were several old photographs. In them, the girl, the victim of 203, stood beside a tall, thin young man, his face turned slightly, eyes cold, and gripped the photo tight, voice breaking. "This is him, the killer. She wants us to find him." At that moment, the overhead bulb blew out. Darkness swallowed the room, a freezing chill closed in, and then, a whisper brushed their ears, a woman's trembling, yet resolute voice. "Bring the truth to light." The silence returned. The bulb flickered back on. The water stains vanished, but in An's hand, the photo trembled, undeniable proof. The three looked at each other. None spoke. They all understood. The journey wasn't over. The girl of room 203 had entrusted them with her final pain. Outside, the night stretched deep. The alley beyond howled with the wind, carrying faint echoes of laughter, weeping, and desperate cries drowned in distant rain. In room 203, the desk lamp still glowed, shining on the old newspaper stained with water, and the half-closed door that seemed never fully shut. This story ends here. Thank you for listening until now. If you enjoyed it, please give a like and subscribe to the channel. That support means everything and helps us create more haunting stories for you. If you have questions or notice mistakes, leave a comment below. Thank you for watching. Darkness in the night will see you again in the next tale.